Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and I'm going to be talking today about the chart of the upcoming full moon, which is on Monday, September 24th, and it's at 8:52 p.m. It is a full moon in Aries, and this is going to be a powerful full moon for a few different reasons. So just to give you a little bit of insight about what full moons are, it's when the sun and the moon oppose each other, and it happens once a month, and it's usually related to some sort of culmination time. The saying is that what the new moon promises, the full moon brings. So this is a full moon in Aries. So the full moon in Aries is about finding our strength and our power through our emotional expression. And what's interesting about this full moon is that it is very closely conjuncted by Chiron in Aries. So Chiron will be at 0 degrees and the full moon's at 2 degrees of Aries. And Chiron in Aries has to do with a wound in relation to the ability to assert ourselves. And so this full moon is going to be bringing forth those areas of our lives where perhaps we have felt like we can't express ourselves in a courageous and strong way because of something that has held us back. And that something perhaps could be related to something from the past, something from even as far back as our childhood, because that is what the moon is symbolic of as well. It's a symbol of our memories, all of our memories, including past life memories, if you believe that. So this is just a big clearing time where some of these wounds in how we assert ourselves are coming up in order and being illuminated at the full moon time in order for us to essentially let them go and move forward with more confidence and strength in our lives. And the way we can do that is through the opposition energy to the sun in Libra, which is opposing the moon. And the sun in Libra has to do with our ability to communicate our individuality. It has to do with having an awareness or a consciousness of the need to express ourselves diplomatically, finding harmony and balance, really focusing on all of our relationships in life, including business partnerships, personal relationships, any kind of relating. So that sun in Libra wants to approach relationships at this time in that balanced way, but at the same time, we are being faced through that moon Chiron in Aries conjunction with the need to make sure that we're not getting dragged off course by any part of ourselves that might be doubting or that might not feel that we can stand in our strength at this time. And what's helpful is that the sun is going to be conjuncting Mercury at 5 degrees of Libra on the full moon. So that's going to bring some ability to communicate, and ability to find a way to diplomatically say what we need to say with others. Now, what is also very interesting and what is bringing sort of this energy to a culmination point at the full moon time is the fact that Saturn in Capricorn at 2 degrees is squaring the moon Chiron conjunction in Aries, and it's squaring the sun Mercury conjunction in Libra. And when you have, this is called a T-square, when you have a T-square in the chart, the opposition energy between the sun and Chiron, between the moon and Chiron and the sun and Mercury creates a polarity. And it's like this energy has to have some kind of outlet. And where it goes is to this Capricorn, Saturn and Capricorn energy in the chart. And that's the outlet for the tension. So Saturn, which is now finally direct, in Capricorn has a lot to do with also standing in our strength. You know, Saturn is about how we create the world that we want in our lives, how we work towards what we want to develop in our lives through our work, through our personal authority. Because Saturn, Capricorn, is on the Cancer Capricorn axis, which means Cancer, which are our deep feelings, what we really truly know about ourselves. That energy in Capricorn is directed in a very outward way, in a very concrete way, in a very practical way of accomplishing what it is we want based on those needs. So this Saturn in Capricorn is very important at this full moon time because it's asking us to really step into our personal authority, especially with that tension between, you know, the sun and Mercury opposite Chiron and the moon, creating this perhaps, you know, tension of like, I don't know if I can. I don't feel, you know, my strength. I don't feel my power. But this Saturn is saying, yes, you need to move forward in a direction that is in alignment with your personal authority, and you need to just do it. So that's a very big part of this full moon energy. There is another T-square going on, and this is between Venus, which is around 8 degrees of Scorpio at the full moon, opposite Uranus, which is at 1 degree of Taurus. Now, the opposition between the two has already occurred, but they're still in an alignment with one another within 7 degrees, but also with Mars in Aquarius. So first, let's just talk about what Venus and Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus is all about. We're going into about 4 months of Venus being in Scorpio. It's going to retrograde, and then it's going to go direct, and it's really going to help us get in touch with what it is we desire. You know, Venus is about finding pleasure. Venus is about that feminine pleasure principle, what our tastes are, what we like, what don't we like. And in Scorpio is like really connected to our deep passions. You know, Venus in Scorpio knows what it likes and knows what it doesn't like. And this time is really going to get us in touch with that and allow us to actually move away from the things that don't truly bring us or satisfy those deep, pleasurable desires within ourselves. Now, with the opposition to Uranus has moved into Taurus, and this is about change. Actually, Venus rules Taurus. So there's something with the Uranus and Taurus while Venus is going to go through this, you know, in Scorpio through this retrograde cycle, that's helping us to understand what Uranus and Taurus is wanting us to awaken to, because that's what Uranus is all about. It's the great awakener. It gives us new insight. It can unsettle things in life, especially if it's, you know, playing with a personal planet in close alignment. But what it's really saying with Uranus and Taurus is that we want to revolutionize our values. We want to bring new awareness to what truly is valuable to us in our lives. And maybe it's not what we had thought it was. So with the Venus, which rules Taurus, in being in Scorpio for the next 4 months, we're going to get an even better understanding of what our Uranus and Taurus new values are all going to be about. So that's part of this second T-square, is the Venus in Scorpio opposite the Uranus and Taurus, really pushing us to let go of that which doesn't really make us happy and move towards these new ideas around what is going to, bring us security, and what is going to, ways we may want to even make money in new ways. It's all changing with Uranus in Taurus. Now, what's the other part of this T-square is the Mars in Aquarius at 3 degrees. And again, that's going to be the outlet for the T-square, that Mars in Aquarius. But what's been happening with Mars in Aquarius is that, and what the South Node has to do with is releasing, because it has to do with the past. It has to do with maybe where we've come from in other lifetimes. And in Aquarius, Aquarius is a very mental energy. It's scientific minded and wants to figure everything out. It wants to find solutions. But what's happening is that we're having to kind of let go of the trying so hard to find those solutions, Mars and Aquarius. But then that South Node there is saying we need to, in some ways, release that effort of trying so hard to figure things out. And if we can do that, then we can move towards the opposite area of the chart, which is the North Node in Leo. And the North Node is about really, truly being courageous and moving towards enjoyment and radiating of ourselves out into the world. It's Leo, it's the king of the jungle. It roars. It has a lot of possession of itself and of its identity. So that is the direction that we want to be going towards at this full moon time. We don't want to get caught up in trying to figure out the past too much. We really are needing to just move towards that North Node in Leo energy and claim our, individuality, essentially. Now, there's a few other things that are going on for the full moon as well that will assist us at this time. There's been a nice trine between Saturn at 2 degrees of Capricorn and Uranus at 1 degree of Taurus retrograde. That exact trine has already happened, but the energy is still around. And again, with that Saturn being being the fulcrum of the first T-square I was describing at the full moon time, Uranus in Taurus trining it will really help to shake loose any of the fear that Saturn in Capricorn might bring up at this time. Uranus is saying, hey, let's work together and integrate these new ideas around how to really create the security that we want in our lives through the possessions and our material values. But it's interesting because it's an interesting place for Uranus to be, because Taurus is really about like security and money and, personal possessions and self-worth. But Uranus is like, do we really need it to be the way we've thought it needs to be? Because Uranus doesn't like a lot of attachment. It wants freedom. It wants independence. So it's interesting that how the two of these will continue to try to work together as we move forward with Uranus and Taurus for the next 7 or 8 years. Because I think it's going to loosen some of that Taurian materialism. It's gonna like pare it down a bit. Uranus is sort of like, we don't necessarily need all that stuff that we thought we needed, and what is it that we, again, truly desire? Because with that Venus in Scorpio, that's the big question. And so then, that Uranian energy is trining the Saturn. It will be helpful at this full moon time to help us kind of dislodge and really truly move forward in our personal authority. Another thing that has been happening, and it's moving on also, but it's still around, has been, the Mars in Aquarius squared Uranus in Taurus at this time. We went through several bouts of that, with Mars retrograding back into Capricorn and then moving forward again into Aquarius. And we had the final square this past week, but the energy is still around at the full moon time. And again, this is Uranus encouraging us with that Mars in Aquarius conjunct the South Node. It's encouraging us, Uranus, to really assert ourselves moving forward. It really wants us to just, go for it, really. Don't look back, go for it, and essentially trust that, the path will rise up to meet us as we're making a lot of big changes in our lives. Another piece to the equation is that the Sun and Mercury in Libra are trining Mars in Aquarius at this full moon time, which will be assisting us in communicating in a way that has a lot of strength to it, because one of the Achilles heels of Libra Sun and even Mercury in Libra can be indecision. Libra wants to find fairness and harmony and balance, and sometimes that can almost paralyze it from actually making a decision. And again, with the opposition from Chiron and the moon in Aries at the full moon, that could be adding to some of the concern about how to move forward. Do we have the strength to move forward? But Mars, which rules Aries, in Aquarius at 3 degrees, is trining that Sun and Mercury. So that will be assisting us and helping us in moving forward and expressing ourselves and communicating in a very powerful and strong way. And the last thing I want to point out is that the Sun conjunct Mercury in Libra is in conjunct Uranus retrograding in Taurus at this time. And the thing about inconjuncts is that we don't always see, the energies don't always see each other. They're not quite in opposition. They kind of don't quite see one another. So the point is to really make sure that we're not, in some ways, ignoring one aspect of the dynamic. And what this could bring up is that Sun conjunct Mercury in Libra does want to be the nice guy, doesn't want to be the bad guy. And Uranus and Taurus is there to say, hey, we want to move forward. We want to move forward towards these new ways of finding security in our lives. And we can't remain in indecision. We need to get unstuck and really go for it. So that's another piece that will be stimulated at this full moon time. I mean, in general, you can see that there's just many patterns that are kind of suggesting the same thing, that we step into our authority, that we move towards our heart's desires, we move towards our passions, we don't get bogged down in feeling like we can't, or that we're not worth it, that we really need to own our power and own our strength and move forward at this time in that direction. So this has been my interpretation of the full moon chart. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you like my channel. You can also find me online at highaltitudeastrology.com. You can sign up to receive a daily blog where I write about the planetary energies on a daily basis. Thank you so much. Adios.